Evidence of the Scattering, Part C, the Caribbean. Okay, so you should be coming over from Part B of Part 10 of this series. These videos are part of a docu-series and should be watched from the beginning in order if you're going to understand what is being presented. So please, if you have not watched Parts 1 through 10B, please stop this video and start back from the beginning, Video 1, and watch them consecutively for true context. Okay, so this is the third part of Part 10, which is labeled Part C, and we are dealing with the evidence of the scattering. In the first part, we dealt with the history in the United States, and in the second part, Part B, we dealt with South America. What we need to do right now is move to the next part of this side of the world and deal with the Caribbean. So let's look at the Caribbean. When you visit the Caribbean, you see islands filled with Hebrew descendants. They all look similar and have very distinct characteristics. One place I love to visit is the Bahamas. Now, I want to go back to Jamaica, but crime is bad there, and these people have lost themselves to American ideals and witchcraft from Haiti. So now they, as a whole, are a lost people. I truly pray for all my Jamaican kin, and for those of you who are there who live in the truth, please continue to endure, because trust, the Most High knows and He sees all of this. Now, the funny thing is that when you think about Jamaicans, they always knew who they were. When I think about Jamaican food, before they brought in all that pork and all that seafood and stuff, their food is very close to Hebrew cuisine. Like, I imagine when I had my curry goat or oxtail, that this is what Rebecca made for Isaac when she helped Jacob steal the blessing from Esau. It's that savory meat. Anyways, they always knew about our father, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, the Rastafarians did. They couldn't take it away from them. But then, the Masons confused them with the Selassie business, and it confused them and brought them out of the truth. That's why there's no power there. But many of them had inklings of the truth. If you listen to songs from Bob Marley, he alluded to many of these things. But also, again, because it was tied with confusion and it was not pure, it's why it had no real power. The point I'm saying is that I love the Caribbean because to me it feels like home, only because many of the islands are not very assimilated, so you will see your people everywhere. Go to places like the Bahamas. It's like being in a Negro movie like Boomerang with an all-Hebrew cast. It's very different than our lives in America, is what I'm saying. They look like you. Many of them look like your cousins. You'll see a lot what we call doppelgangers. It's because we are all scattered. But unfortunately, we do not have knowledge of ourselves.
Barbados was ruthlessly colonized by the British Empire and became what's been described as the most systematically violent, brutal and racially inhumane society of modernity. Barbados had been under British control since the 1620s. On 14 May 1625, the first English ship docked there and claimed it for King James I. From 1627, English settlers began occupying the island, wiping away traces of its original inhabitants. Initially, white British indentured servants were used to toil on the plantations of tobacco, cotton, indigo and sugar, but in just a few decades, Barbados became England's first truly profitable slave society. Between 1627 and 1833, nearly 600,000 African slaves were made to work in its sugar plantations, making Barbados the sugarized jewel in the British Empire. Race politics in the Caribbean colonies was introduced by the whites, who placed themselves at the top, the blacks at the bottom, and mixed groups in between. More than 10 million Africans were shackled into the Atlantic slave trade by European nations between the 15th and 19th centuries. Those who survived the often brutal voyage ended up toiling on plantations where they were exploited and treated inhumanely for being from an inferior race. In 1834, slavery was abolished in Barbados, and the island nation went from being a colony to a fully independent state in 1966. Despite this, the Queen still remained its head of the state. It has taken Barbados 55 years to be reborn as a republic, but it will remain within the Commonwealth, a group of 54 countries across Africa, Asia, the Americas, and Europe. The historic handover ceremony was attended by Prince Charles, who acknowledged Britain's appalling colonial legacy.
From the darkest days of our past and the appalling atrocity of slavery, which forever stains our history, the people of this island forged their path with extraordinary fortitude.
The last country to end ties with the crown was the island nation of Mauritius in 1992. And now, with Barbados withdrawing from the monarchy, will other countries follow suit?
The original inhabitants of Jamaica were the Arawaks. They came from South America and cultivated the land on the island and fished from the sea. But all that changed in 1494 when Christopher Columbus docked in Jamaica and, in true colonial fashion, claimed the island for Spain. A few years later, on his second return to Jamaica, his crew suffered a shipwreck, and they spent a year on the island waiting to be rescued. By 1509, the Spanish built their first settlement there. They enslaved the indigenous population, and by the early 17th century, most of the Arawak people had died from the diseases that the Spanish had brought with them, and from being overworked amid poor slave conditions. A small number of African slaves were also brought to the island. In 1655, the English led a successful attack on the Spanish in Jamaica. The Spanish surrendered, freed their slaves, and fled to Cuba. The free slaves would come to be known as the Maroons and took refuge in the highlands. They cultivated the land, hunted across the region, and married with some of the remaining Arawaks. The Spanish never recaptured Jamaica, and England took formal possession of the island in 1670. The English needed slaves to cultivate sugar, indigo, and cacao, so they brought more African slaves to the island. Jamaica ended up becoming one of the busiest slave markets in the world. In the 18th century, Jamaica's sugar production reached its peak before it was rivaled by coffee production. 300,000 slaves were living in Jamaica under terrible conditions. Between 1780 and 1787, an estimated 15,000 slaves starved to death. Slave revolts occurred frequently, and some of the enslaved ran away to join the Maroons. The British also destroyed many Maroon settlements, which eventually led to what is known as the Maroon Wars. 600 Maroons were even deported to Nova Scotia by the British. In 1807, the transatlantic slave trade was abolished, and by 1838, slaves in the colonies were freed. Many former slaves moved off the plantations. Some governors brought thousands of plantation workers from India, hoping to reduce their costs and avoid paying the former slaves high wages. But the plantation system collapsed, leading to widespread poverty and unemployment. In 1866, the British Parliament declared Jamaica a crown colony, and everything from the police force to the schooling system was reorganized. A lucrative banana trade was established. In the 1930s, in the wake of the Great Depression, Jamaica was hit hard. A worldwide economic collapse ruined the banana trade and brought about mass unemployment and poverty. There was widespread violence and protest. Labor unions were formed, and Jamaicans demanded independence. By 1962, after more than 300 years of British rule, Jamaica gained full dominion or independence under the Commonwealth. The country set its own constitution, which was to retain the British monarch as its head of state. In 2021, the Jamaican government announced that they would ask Britain for compensation for forcibly transporting hundreds of thousands of Africans to work on plantations that paid its fortune to British slave owners.
You see, no one knows who they are except that they are black and from Africa, or they just go by the island that they're from. This is not just us in the United States, but people all over the world. Like, for instance, it happened in Canada too.
DeAndre Campbell, Michael Elligan, Dwayne Christian, just three of many Black Canadians involved in use of force cases involving police in Canada. Each one under the age of 30. Each story a tragedy related to hundreds of years of history before Canada was even a nation.
In 1834, Canada became the terminus of the Underground Railroad, a secret network that helped bring some 30,000 enslaved men, women, and children from the United States to relative freedom. But freedom did not mean equality. Africville, on the outskirts of Halifax, was a Black community dating back to 1848. For decades, the city of Halifax refused to provide residents clean drinking water. By 1970, the city had relocated all of Africville's residents. Some of them were moved in garbage trucks.
The computer center riot has gained an almost mythical stature as a turning point for race relations in Canada.
In 1969, students at what is now known as Concordia University in Montreal barricaded themselves in a computer room on campus to protest discrimination by a prof against 6 Black students. Legacy of trauma lives on today. When video surfaced of Justin Trudeau in blackface in the 1990s, Even the PM admitted he wasn't aware of how racist the act was.
It was something that I didn't think was racist at the time, but now I recognize it was something racist to do, and I am deeply sorry.
He didn't think it was racist at the time. Okay. This is the plight of the Hebrews scattered around the world. No matter where you look, these descendants of slaves are at the bottom and have no identity besides a skin color. If you see all this and call yourself a believer in the Bible, but think this is only about skin color, you are in the strong delusion. It is honestly crazy to think that this is all about skin color and call yourself a believer of the scriptures. These people are all around the world scattered, and they have said to have no identity except being black. Really? If you go back to part 1 in my introduction video, I explained that for the most part, everyone else in the world normally may have an idea of where their family descends from. It's not like us with just a skin color or a continent. But we are the only people that know ourselves by a skin color or by a continent. And it's bad enough that this is the reality for the people of the United States, but truly ask yourself, what are the odds that this is for all people scattered around the world that look like us, that descend from slavery? I showed you evidence of it in South America, but it's the same everywhere. I showed you what they look like in the Caribbean. But let me highlight a place not normally mentioned. I think one place that brings clarity to all of this is a place like Cuba. The racism there is exactly the same as we face all over the world, and they even brought it to South Florida. The Cubans in South Florida look at themselves more as being white, but there are Afro-Cubans with our same plight.
Estoy hablando de racismo incluido, que el racismo más fuerte que hay en el Caribe. Yo creo que el racismo que se expresa en Cuba tiene que ver con esa cultura, con esas mediaciones entre el que está arriba, el blanco, el poder, la ley, el dinero, y el que está abajo, que es el subalterno, el criado, el esclavo, el que no tiene dinero, el dominado, el oprimido.
Cuba is proud of its African heritage. About 1 million African slaves were brought to the island, mostly to work on sugarcane plantations, from the 16th century until the abolition of slavery in 1866. About 60% of Cubans have at least some African ancestry.
In our religion, in our culture, we all equal. Blacks, whites, mulattoes, we all the same. Whites are even practicing our African religion.
The official line written into the Constitution is that all Cubans, men and women, black and white, are equal. And there's no doubt that many Afro-Cubans have thrived in politics, the media and the arts. However, manual labour is still mostly done by black Cubans, while there are few Afro-Cuban managers in the burgeoning tourist industry or the new foreign-financed enterprises the government has enticed to the island. Campaigner Gisela Arandia says centuries of discrimination have left her people with low self-esteem. She says, though, that she's optimistic about their future.
It's a social process that needs time and space. I feel this is not just a black person's fight. I feel it's society's fight. The fight for a group that's been denied its rights to be full citizens.
More than 50 years after the triumph of the revolution, a revolution that promised equality for all, the wealthier neighbourhoods here are still predominantly white, while neighbourhoods such as this one are still predominantly Afro-Cuban. Fundamental change, it seems, can be a long time coming. It was only when this Afro-Cuban housing project was renovated that lifelong resident Barbara felt that she and her neighbours began to be accepted by the rest of Cuban society.
It was because we're black. The problem was because we're black. They saw us as uncultured, but not now.
And listen, there is so much more that I can illustrate, but I think this last example will stress the point that I'm making the best.
Hey, look, me presento.
Presento, sí. Presento a Diel.
Adiel del Bronx.
Del Bronx. Here he
is. Aquí en Cuba. Aquí en Cuba. No, él es de Nueva York. No, él es de Nueva York, está en Cuba.
De Cali. Él viene del puente del Piñal de Buenaventura, véalo, vea.
Hey, this is my brother, he's my cousin, mi primo de Nueva York. Está en Cuba trabajando, no sé por qué, pero
trabaja aquí vendiendo coco.
Sí.
This brother put this on Instagram. This was 3 Negro men walking through Havana, Cuba. One was Cuban, one was Colombian, and one was from the United States. The brother talking was the one from the United States. He was from the Bronx. He said the people were so confused because they literally could have come from any country. They all looked similar, except that they were from 3 different places, 3 different countries. If you saw them walking together, they would look related. You might have thought that they were all related until they spoke and they all had different languages. You see, none of them know who they were outside of where their families were dropped off to. These men did not actually know each other. That's what I'm trying to illustrate. This is the scattering. Now, I want to be very thorough with this, so what I'm going to do is stop here, and I'm going to pick this back up in the next video because there's more to see and understand, and I don't want to overwhelm and make these videos too long. In the next part, I'm going to take you to the other side and discuss what is going on in Asia, Africa, and Europe, because this scattering is a real thing, and I want it to be plain to see. So we will pick this topic back up in the next part. This will be part A, and the next part will be part B. You must remember that the scattering is prophecy. It says, and Yahuwah will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where Yahuwah will drive you. And there you will serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 27 and 28. Also Yahusha prophesied, and they will fall by the edge of the sword, and be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Luke chapter 21, verse 24. You see, the Bible is a real book. And if you understand this, it can not only build your faith, but help you truly understand the world and what you're actually looking at in this world. Remember, right now, many of you watching are the dry bones, and it's time that you are awakened. And this series is trying to do just that. So now that you understand who you are a descendant from the house of Israel and Judah, and your life has been cursed because of the rebellion of you and your ancestors. Please continue on to the next part and allow me to continue to show you more evidence of the scattering around the world. I hope by now that you have made it this far in the series, it has at least got you thinking. Again, right now, many of you are the dry bones. And as Ezekiel 37 verse 11 says, you may believe your hope is lost, and you yourselves are cut off. But I am here to show you the complete opposite is true. Your hope is not lost, and you yourselves are not cut off, if you just awaken and be who you truly are. So I will show you. Click the link to the next video, and let's talk some more. Be blessed. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. Okay, thanks again for watching. If this has blessed you, please like this and share this video with your family and your friends. This is not just a video to share, but to watch together with your family and friends and start the conversation. It's intended to start conversations that many of you can all lead personally. So use this and help your family and friends that allow you to. This is part 10 of this series. Click the link or just move on to the next video in the playlist. As always, I want to thank all of you who donate and contribute to this ministry. Please know that this series would not be possible without your support. I thank you sincerely. Be blessed. Okay, thanks again everyone for watching. See you in the 4th part to part 10. I love you all.